My name is Ryan, and the best way to describe me is as someone who is kind, considerate, and always striving to provide his wife with everything she desires. It took me 2 marriages to realize that being reserved and giving your all to the person you love can sometimes lead to contempt and disrespect. I won't let that happen again. Some entitled individuals believe they can act secretly without their partner's knowledge, thinking that as long as they aren't caught, everything is fine. They try to hide their guilt in various ways until they're eventually exposed. When that happens, they suddenly feel remorse and claim they didn't want their spouse to find out and be hurt. Do they even hear themselves? What are we supposed to think when they say they never intended for us to discover their actions? It's like they're admitting to betrayal and only feel sorry because they got caught. That's quite insulting. I'm convinced some people simply cannot grasp normal moral reasoning. Sandy and I met after both of us ended dysfunctional relationships. She had been with her boyfriend, Billy, for 3 years before he left her for a younger, more attractive woman. Sandy was heartbroken and suffered from low self-esteem after being abandoned by the man she loved. She never completely got over Billy, and that always bothered me to some extent. I'm Ryan, 6 years older than Sandy. I was married for 5 years to an incredibly attractive and seductive woman who made my world spin. I was deeply in love with her and believed we would spend the rest of our lives together. My ex-wife, Charlotte, however, had affairs behind my back during a time when I was completely devoted to her. It took me a year to discover her infidelity, and it hurt me deeply. I left her and vowed never to let it happen again. Afterward, I realized that trust would always be an issue for me in any new relationship. Sandy and I were aware of each other's past baggage. I helped Sandy overcome her self-esteem issues as she worked hard to improve her body and appearance. She spent her free time shopping for new clothes, visiting the beauty salon, and playing tennis. With my support, she transformed into a confident, attractive woman. In return, Sandy helped me overcome my confidence issues. Knowing my history, she always reassured me that I was her one and only love and expressed how lucky she felt to have found me. Every day, she expressed her love and ensured all my needs were fulfilled. Our life together was vibrant. We spent quality time together, shared kisses and cuddles on the couch, and maintained a strong bond. We even began discussing the possibility of having children. We truly felt like soulmates. Life seemed great, or at least that's what I believed. A week after celebrating our 6th anniversary, my life took an unexpected turn. I saw Sandy wearing a dress I hadn't seen before, and she looked stunning. It was unusual for a typical weekday morning. To clarify, I wasn't spying on her, but we had a home video surveillance system that I occasionally checked during work to watch our dog, Brandy, a little dachshund who always brought me comfort during stressful days. That particular morning, however, I noticed something odd on the live feed. There was Sandy, dressed in a short, alluring red dress with extremely high heels. Her hair was perfectly styled, and her makeup was flawless. It had been years since I'd seen her look this attractive. I felt uneasy and anxious. I decided to call her and ask about her plans. "Hey, babe, just sitting here thinking about you. How's your day going? Tennis today?" "Hey, honey, I miss you. I don't have anything scheduled for today. No tennis because Cara hurt her ankle, so I decided to take the day off." "Oh, that's unfortunate. I know how much you enjoy playing tennis. So, what's on your agenda then?" "Well, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't made any specific plans. Perhaps I'll head to the gym. Would you be interested in meeting for lunch? I can swing by the house and pick you up." "That's very considerate, babe, but not today. I'm feeling a bit bloated and not particularly hungry right now. I'll just have a protein shake at the gym. I'll see you tonight. Love you, baby." She didn't say her usual "I love you" when we ended the call, and I'm pretty sure she noticed because I always say it. She lied to me, and I needed to figure out why. Trust is fragile, and I could sense something was wrong. I had a GPS tracker installed in her car for security purposes, but now, sadly, I was using it to track her. After hanging up, I left the office, went to my car, and activated the tracker. She was heading downtown, so I followed her. 15 minutes later, I caught up with her as she entered a parking garage. I parked on the street and waited by the entrance. 5 minutes later, my lovely wife, dressed in high heels and that red dress, was heading toward Fellini's, an upscale restaurant. My stomach was in knots, hoping I wasn't being deceived again. When I saw her waving to a man in front of the restaurant, I knew I was in trouble. I moved closer, staying out of sight, and saw him greet her with a kiss. They exchanged a few words, and he took her hand as they entered the restaurant. I crossed the street and peered through the window as they stood in front of the hostess, their arms around each other. I noticed Sandy leaning affectionately on his shoulder. Tears welled up in my eyes, but soon anger overtook me. I wiped my eyes, took out my phone, and started taking pictures. Just as I was snapping photos, I saw him turn to Sandy and kiss her passionately. She responded with an equally passionate kiss. The pain in my heart and the anger in my head pushed me down a dark road. I couldn't decide what to do before the hostess showed them to their table. Then, I realized the man was Billy, her ex-boyfriend, the one who had broken her heart. She knew how much I disliked him and how I had made it clear she should never speak to him again. She clearly didn't respect my wishes. My anger boiled over. In just the past hour, she had lied to me, dressed provocatively to meet her ex, kissed him passionately, and planned to spend the day with him. That kind of disrespect and humiliation was unacceptable. The promise I made to myself after my last marriage prevented me from being patient and accepting such betrayal. It was over, and all that was left was to hear more lies and excuses from my soon-to-be ex-wife. Still seething with anger, I drove back to the office and finished the day at my desk, trying to process how this could have happened again. After wallowing in self-pity for hours, I headed home, already planning my next move. I wondered if Sandy would come clean or continue to deceive me, which would make my decision easier. With great effort, I controlled my anger and drove home to confront the end of my marriage. As I pulled into the driveway, tears welled up as I mourned the loss of the woman I once loved and respected. Sandy was setting the table for dinner, dressed nicely and acting affectionate. When I entered the kitchen, she gave me a warm kiss and told me how much she had missed me. To me, it felt like typical behavior of a cheating spouse, trying to alleviate guilt by showing more affection. I thought she was attempting to make amends for her betrayal. I tried to behave normally, but it was clear I was failing when Sandy looked at me and asked, "Honey, are you okay? Did something happen?" I poured myself a generous glass of whiskey, attempted a smile, and tried to relax. "I'm fine. It's just been a busy day. Let me freshen up for dinner, and I'll be down in a bit," I replied. In the bedroom, I changed and sat on the bed, sipping my drink and letting it calm my nerves. After regaining my composure, I went back to the kitchen and found my beautiful wife in high spirits, with dinner laid out on the table. She seemed content with the day she'd spent with her ex. We sat together, and I initiated a conversation. "This is a lovely dinner, Sandy, and you look stunning today." "Thank you. I love you, honey, and I love cooking for you," she replied with a satisfied smile. We sat in an uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. While eating, I noticed Sandy glancing at me, trying to gauge what was bothering me. Did she feel guilty? Would she finally tell me the truth about her day? I was about to find out. "So, tell me about your day. What did you do?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. "Well, after you called, I went to the gym for a couple of hours, had a protein bar, and then came home to prepare dinner for you. It was a pretty uneventful day," she responded. Seeing my expression and the tears welling up in my eyes, she quickly looked down at her plate. In a low voice, I asked, "Sandy, how do you think we should handle this situation? Should we consult lawyers first, or would you prefer counseling?" "What are you referring to, dear?" she asked, feigning innocence. "I'm talking about divorce, obviously," I replied. Stop playing dumb. What are you talking about? Why do you want a divorce? She asked, her voice trembling. Seriously, I'll give you a few minutes to think about that question before I respond. Suddenly, she appeared anxious. Her hands fidgeted with her glass, and she avoided making eye contact with me. Several minutes passed in silence. Were you following me tonight? She asked nervously. No, I lied, though I knew it didn't really matter. For some reason, I didn't want her to know. Why are you asking if I followed you? Is there something I should be aware of? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She seemed confused and unsure of what to say. As expected, she denied everything, claiming she didn't understand why I was bringing up divorce. Why are you saying these things? Why do you look so sad? She asked. I stared into her eyes, hoping she would be honest with me. After a prolonged silence, I said, Well, let me show you what's been bothering me, Sandy. I unlocked my phone and showed her a picture of her and Billy kissing outside the restaurant. That photo could still be interpreted as a friendly greeting. I didn't want to reveal the other pictures yet. Not until I heard more from her. Her jaw dropped, and tears welled up in her eyes. Honey, I can explain, she began, her voice trembling. It was just a hello kiss. Nothing else happened. How did you get this photo? So, how's Billy these days? I asked sarcastically. Let me explain how I got this picture. I was crossing the street after leaving a software store when I thought I saw you walking into a restaurant with someone. I crossed the street and approached the window. That's when I saw you with his arm around you. At first, I thought it couldn't be you, but I was wrong. It was you. I continued. My next thought was, why is she dressed so provocatively? She never dresses like that for me anymore. Then I realized you were with Billy, and everything became clear. I started taking pictures, and just as you leaned in to kiss him, I captured this. That's how I got this photo. I showed her the next picture, where she had her arms around Billy's neck, her short dress riding up and revealing her legs. You looked incredibly attractive in that dress. Your hair and makeup were flawless. Were you going to a modeling shoot? Or maybe starting a new job? Can you explain why you dress like that for him? I can't remember the last time you wore something so alluring for me. She covered her face with her hands and began to cry. I continued to stare at her, waiting for an explanation. My new phone has an amazing camera with great zoom capabilities. Look, let me show you, I said as I moved closer to her. In one of the photos, her left arm was wrapped around Billy's neck, and her wedding ring was noticeably missing. I zoomed in on her bare ring finger and held the image up to her face. No wedding rings today? That's strange. I can't recall you ever taking them off during all our time together. Today must have been a special day. Now, do you see why I'm talking about divorce? You lied to me this morning about your plans, removed your wedding rings, dressed provocatively to meet your ex, and lied again about your day just now. I took a deep breath and continued. You put on an outfit for your ex-lover, spent the day with him, and abandoned our marriage by removing your rings. Then you lied to my face repeatedly. I don't know if you slept with him or not, but honestly, it doesn't even matter. Your actions have shown me that you can't keep your promises, and you're willing to lie to cover things up. That's a valid reason for divorce, and I think you know it. Sandy was deeply shaken. She hadn't truly considered the consequences of her actions until now. The way I described it made her feel like she had been unfaithful, something she hadn't believed before. Up until this moment, she had viewed it as harmless teasing and flirting, nothing serious. But for the first time since Billy had re-entered her life, the gravity of her behavior hit her. She realized their connection had grown deeper, crossing emotional boundaries and teetering on the edge of infidelity. Though nothing physical had happened, the emotional attachment itself felt like a betrayal. Tears streamed down her face as she muttered, "What have I done?" Guilt gnawed at her, and she felt a knot of sickness in her stomach, knowing the pain she had caused her husband. She admitted to herself that if the roles were reversed, she would have reacted the same way. Through her sobs, she pleaded, "Ryan, you have to believe me. Nothing happened. We parted ways right after dinner. It was just lunch, I swear. I realize now how it looks, and I understand why you're upset. If I were in your shoes, I'd feel exactly the same. I'm so sorry. Please, can you forgive me for being so foolish?" Ryan's face hardened as he responded, "Foolishness? It's more than that, Sandy. You did this with your ex, the one person you promised to avoid. Can you explain why you dressed like that for him? Took off your wedding rings, held his hand and kissed him? Why did you lie to my face over and over again? Does our marriage mean so little to you? And yes, if our roles were reversed, I'm sure your reaction would be very different." Tears continued to spill as she tried to reason with him. "Ryan, please, don't let our marriage crumble over this. Nothing significant happened. He was in town, and he invited me to lunch. I know I shouldn't have gone, especially knowing how you feel about him. I guess I dressed up to show him what he lost, to remind him of the happiness he threw away. It wasn't about him. I wanted closure. Yes, I kissed him, but it wasn't romantic. It was just a friendly goodbye. Please, baby, let's work through this. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." Ryan's expression didn't soften. Whatever it takes. That's easy to say now, isn't it? Sensing a sliver of hope, she desperately agreed. "Yes, of course, anything. Just tell me what you need." Ryan leaned forward. "All right, Sandy. I'll give you one chance, just one. Show me your phone." Her face went pale, and she stared at him in disbelief. "Why do you need to see my phone?" "Because if what you're saying is true, then there's nothing to hide. If it really means nothing, let me see the text between you two. I want to know what you've been saying." Her gaze fell to the floor as she whispered, "No, you don't need to see that." Ryan's voice turned cold. "Exactly what I thought. If you can't show me your phone, there's no trust left between us. So, I'll ask again. How do you think we should handle this?" Tears poured down her cheeks as she begged for forgiveness, swearing she'd never repeat her actions. But the damage had been done. Ryan, haunted by the betrayal and painful memories of his first marriage, refused to let himself fall for excuses again. "Wait, please, Ryan. If I give you my phone, will you promise to give me another chance? You have to know I love you and that I've never done anything like this before. I acted like a foolish teenager. Yes, I enjoyed the attention, but it was meaningless. I know it was childish and wrong. Please, let me prove myself to you." Ryan's voice remained firm. "I can't promise that, Sandy, but I will promise this. If you don't give me the phone, our relationship is over. I'll be calling Mark Wilson, the attorney I've already spoken to prepare divorce papers this week." She hesitated, unsure of what to do, but the truth was already out. Ryan continued, "Honesty and transparency could have saved our marriage, but you waited until you had no other choice to even consider being truthful. That hesitation sealed your fate." Realizing the depth of her mistakes, Sandy broke down in sobs. The trust between them was shattered, and her emotional relationship with Billy was as damaging as any physical affair could have been. Despite her vows never to make the same mistake again, it was too late to repair the damage. Their once happy marriage unraveled. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. They sold the house, divided their belongings, and parted ways. Not as bitter enemies, but as broken individuals who had loved and lost. In the aftermath, Sandy and Billy briefly got together, and she became pregnant. However, Billy abandoned her as soon as he learned about the pregnancy, claiming he wasn't ready for children. Shortly after, he disappeared, leaving Sandy to face the consequences alone. According to her sister, Debbie, Sandy spiraled into depression. Her self-esteem, once bolstered by vanity and pride, crumbled under the weight of her choices. Her sorrow deepened when a tragic accident caused her to lose the baby. Falling down a long flight of stairs in her apartment, Sandy's life descended into misery. Her existence, once seemingly perfect, had turned into a waking nightmare. Vanity and selfishness had robbed her of everything: her marriage, her love, her respect, and her happiness. The foundations of trust and loyalty she had taken for granted were gone, and there was no way to rebuild them.